The transmission went on a Tuesday. I'm sitting in a parking lot. Car won't move. And my brain does the thing it always did back then, the math. How much is this going to cost? Do I have it? What do I put it on? How long to pay that off? That whole spiral in about 4 seconds. Just automatic. Except this time it didn't happen. I just called the shop. Got a quote. Paid it. Moved on. That was it. No panic. No credit card. No 3 months of damage control. The car broke. I fixed it. And by that afternoon, I'd forgotten about it. I remember thinking this is what $10,000 actually does. Not the interest it earns. Not the compound growth. Not the retirement projection on some chart. The thing it actually does is it turns a crisis into a Tuesday. And nobody told me that. Nobody told me there was a specific number, not a range, not build an emergency fund, a specific number where the whole math of your financial life inverts. Below it, every institution you deal with is architecturally set up to take from you. Above it, they start competing for your business. $10,000 is that line. And I want to show you exactly what happens when you cross it, because if you're grinding toward it right now, you deserve to know what you're actually building toward. I started at 42 grand a year. I know what this grind feels like. I also know what's on the other side of it. Let's get into it. Here's what nobody says out loud. There is a fee schedule, a real one, written by the people who profit from you staying broke. And right now, if you've got less than $10,000 in savings, you are paying that fee schedule every single year, and it doesn't show up as one line item, which is exactly why you don't see it. Let's add it up. The average person with an overdraft active checking account, meaning someone who's had at least one overdraft in the last year, pays roughly $380 a year in overdraft fees alone. $35 a pop, and these accounts typically hit it 4 to 6 times. And look, I'm not talking about people who are careless. I'm talking about people who are one unexpected bill away from a timing problem, which is most of us, when we're below the line, $380 for having less money than they want you to have. Then there's the monthly maintenance fees. Chase charges $15 a month on their most common checking account. That's $180 a year, unless you keep $1,500 minimum daily balance or have a qualifying direct deposit. Wells Fargo runs the same play, $15 a month, $1,500 to dodge it. Bank of America comes in at $12 a month, $144 a year. Same song, different bank, same trap. Now you might be thinking, wait, those waiver thresholds are way below $10,000. You're right, and that's important. We'll come back to it. But here's what most people miss: the credit card. If you've got thin savings, and right now, somewhere around 6 in 10 Americans have less than $10,000 set aside. Depending on how you measure it, your credit profile looks like someone who's thin on savings. And the credit card industry has a very organized response to that. They call it tiered pricing. The rest of us call it what it is. The worse your situation, the more we charge you. Right now, if you've got good credit, 750 and above the average credit card, APR is somewhere around 21%. If your credit is fair, call it 650 to 730, you're looking at closer to 26, 27%. That's a 5 or 6 point spread. On a $2,000 balance, that's an extra $130, $140 a year just for being in a shakier financial position. You know what I kept thinking when I first ran this math? I thought it was a mistake, like I'd added something wrong, but I hadn't. So let's total it up, and I want to be straight about this because some of these overlap and I don't want to double count anything. Overdraft fees on an active overdraft account, $380. Monthly maintenance fees, if you're not hitting the waiver threshold, somewhere between $144 and $180 depending on your bank. Credit card rate differential on a modest balance, $130. And I haven't even touched payday lending, which is a whole other universe where the annual percentage rates run into the triple digits, or the emergency debt spiral, where a $600 car repair goes on a card and costs you $700 or more by the time you pay it off. We're talking somewhere between $600 and $900 a year. Call it $700. Conservatively, $700 a year. That's your bill for being below the line. It doesn't arrive as one invoice. It comes in $15 chunks and $35 chunks and slightly higher interest chunks, and it's designed that way because if it showed up as one line item, annual fee for being below our threshold, $700, you'd close the account. And I want you to sit with this for a second because this is the part that made me genuinely angry when I figured it out. The overdraft fee, the monthly maintenance fee, the penalty, APR, those aren't accidents. The fee schedule at every major retail bank was written by people whose job is to maximize revenue from every customer segment. And the customers below the minimum balance threshold are, in the industry's own internal math, the most profitable per dollar held of any segment. They extract more from you per dollar you have than they do from the person with $100,000 in the account. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a business model, and it has your name on it right now. But here's what changes. I want you to think about this as a step function, not a slope, because that's what it actually is. This isn't the more you save, the gradually better things get. There are thresholds, lines, and at $10,000, there's a flip. The fee math goes first. Chase's checking account waives all monthly fees at a $1,500 minimum daily balance. Wells Fargo has similar structures. But $10,000 in savings means you've got the cushion to maintain those minimums without thinking about them, plus a dedicated savings account separate from checking that doesn't get touched for daily expenses. The fees don't just drop, they disappear. Monthly maintenance goes to zero, overdraft risk goes to near zero because you've got actual buffer. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is the rate inversion. Right now, if your money is sitting in a standard savings account at a big retail bank, it's earning somewhere around 0.4% annually. On $10,000, that's about $40 a year, which is basically nothing. But here's what 10 grand unlocks: the high yield savings account. The best HYSA rates right now are sitting at around 4%. On 10,000, that's around $400 a year just sitting there, just for having your money in the right place. So the math flips completely. Before $10,000, you're paying, call it, $700 a year in fees and rate penalties. After $10,000, you're earning, call it, $400 a year in interest, paying zero in fees. That's a swing of over $1,000 a year. Not from investing, not from taking risks, just from crossing the line. That's the inversion. Below it, extraction. Above it, competition. Because here's what else happens when you've got $10,000 in savings. Banks start wanting your business. The HYSA rates I just mentioned, those are banks competing for your deposit. You become a customer they're trying to attract instead of a customer they're trying to hold fees on. That's a completely different relationship, and you feel it. Now, I want to get specific about the emergency math because this is the one that actually changed how I moved through the world. Before I had a savings floor, a $600 emergency had a predictable trajectory. Car repair, unexpected medical bill, whatever, $600, I didn't have liquid. Goes on the card at, call it 24% APR. I'm paying minimums for a few months. Total cost by the time I clear it, somewhere around $650, $660. And that's if nothing else goes sideways during those months, which it almost always did, because a thin savings balance is a system that amplifies shocks. After $10,000, the $600 comes out of savings. 2-3 months of normal contributions, it's back. Total cost, zero interest, zero debt, zero spiral. The emergency absorbed into the floor and the floor rebuilt itself. That's not a financial concept. That's a lived experience. It changes how you sleep. And here's the one that people underestimate because it's harder to put a number on, but I promise you it's real: the job. When you've got no savings floor, you need the next paycheck. Full stop. That need is leverage that your employer holds over you, whether they think about it that way or not. You can't walk away. You can't wait out a negotiation. You can't take a week to consider a lowball offer. You need the paycheck, so you take the deal you're given. $10,000 in savings is roughly 3 months of runway at most income levels in this range. 3 months means you can have a real negotiation. You can say no to the first offer. You can leave a toxic situation without jumping straight into the next bad one. The raise you couldn't ask for because you were one missed check away from a problem, now you can ask for it. And if they say no, you have options. I'm not going to put a dollar figure on that because it's different for everyone. But I've watched people leave mediocre jobs because they had a cushion, land better ones, and close a $10,000, $15,000 income gap in a single move. The savings made the move possible. Oh, and the compound interest. I promised I'd mention it. On $10,000 at current HYSA rates, you're earning roughly $400 a year. That number grows as the balance grows. It's real. It's not the headline here. The fee inversion is worth 5 times more in the first year, but it's not nothing. It's the system finally running in your direction for once. Okay, here's the part I care about most, because the revelation is useless without the map. I'm going to walk through this at real take-home numbers. Not gross salary, not what the offer letter says, what actually hits your account. And I'm going to start where I started, because the hardest path is the one that matters most. At 45 grand gross single filer, average state tax, you're taking home somewhere around $3,000 a month. That's it. That's what the system gives you to work with. Real expenses for a single person at this income, rent, and your number depends on your market, but call it $1,200. Food at $450. Transportation at $350, including car payment or transit, utilities and phone at $250, everything else at $300. That's a real monthly spend of around $2,550. Disposable income, roughly $4 to $50 a month. Now, I'm not going to tell you to save all of it. That's not how life works at this income. But if you can direct $200, $250 a month into a protected savings account, automated so you never see it, you're looking at about 3.5 years to cross the line. 40 months, give or take. And look, I know 3.5 years sounds like a long time. I thought so too. But sit with what you're actually buying. Permanent exit from a system that's charging you $700 a year just for being in it. 3.5 years, and every fee, every rate, every emergency flips from working against you to working for you. That's the best return you'll ever see, and you don't need a brokerage account to get it. At 55 grand gross, you're taking home around $3,600 a month. Same expense structure, roughly $2,700 out the door. You're putting $350, $400 away. That's $10,000 in about 2 years. At 65 grand, take home around $4,200. Expenses still in the same range, call it $2,900. Save $450, $500 a month, $10,000 in under 2 years. The mechanics are identical at every income level. Only the timeline changes. And notice, even at the tightest income, we're not talking about a decade. We're talking about a few years of a system running in the background while you live your life. The enemy isn't your income. The enemy is the absence of a system. And honestly, once I understood that, the whole thing got a lot less overwhelming. Here's what the system looks like. It's not complicated. It's almost embarrassingly simple, which is why I get annoyed when people dress it up. You open a high-yield savings account, Marcus, Ally, SoFi. Pick one separate from your checking account, not linked in a way you can transfer instantly while standing at a checkout counter. Separate enough that accessing it takes one extra step. Then you set up an automatic transfer, whatever your number is, the $250, the $350, the $450, to move on the same day your direct deposit lands. Before you see it, before you make any decisions about it, that's it. That's the whole system. One setup, maybe 20 minutes, and then it runs without you. The reason people don't hit 10,000 isn't income, it's drift. Money sits in checking. It gets spent. Not on anything dramatic, just the slow ambient spending that happens when money is accessible and available. The automation removes the decision. You don't save what's left over. You spend what's left after saving. That sequencing, save first, spend second, that's the whole thing. Now, before 10,000, there's a checkpoint. The first one is $1,000. A dedicated $1,000 in a separate account is the floor that stops the smallest emergencies from becoming debt. That's its own milestone, the gear shift before the gear shift. If you're not there yet, that's where you start. Because you can't build toward 10,000 if every $400 emergency is wiping out whatever you've built. 1,000, then 10,000. Then, and I'll say this once and come back to it in a future video, 25,000 is where the next shift happens. Investment accounts fully funded, emergency fund bulletproofed, the leverage relationship with any employer basically inverted. That's the next line. But we're talking about 10,000 today, and 10,000 is the one that changes daily life. Here's what I want you to take away from this. The fee schedule at Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, it was designed to extract from people below a certain balance. That's not an opinion. That's the fee structure. Written down, publicly available. Below $1,500, $15 a month. Below the threshold, overdraft fees at $35 a pop. Above it, $0. The line is real. They drew it. $700 a year is your current bill for being below it. The interest rate differential on your credit products adds to it. The emergency debt spiral, when it hits, adds to it. And the job you can't leave, the negotiation you can't have, the risk you can't take, those costs are harder to quantify, but they're real. 10,000 removes all of it, not gradually. As a step function, you cross the line and the extraction stops. The HYSA starts paying you instead. The fees vanish. The emergency becomes a Tuesday. The negotiation becomes possible. You're not saving for a rainy day. Save for a rainy day is what they tell you, so you never ask why it keeps raining. You're saving to cross the extraction line. There's a difference. A few years from your income. One account, automated. The system runs without you. And once you're there, once you've crossed 10,000, the next line is 25,000. That's where the next gear shift happens. I'll show you exactly what changes there. But first, get to 10. The math is on your side once you cross it. That's what nobody shows you. Now you've seen it.